So during this time, there was lots of Chicago trips because that's where we ran when things happened, or I should say that's where he like brought me when things happened. And we would go to his grandma's house, and you know, she'd say, go get some ice, blah blah blah, and you know, I would go back in the back room and cry, and he would, you know, she'd be yelling at him and being like, you have to stop this, and she'd tell me, you know, he ain't no good for you, blah blah blah, this is not okay, you know, y'all have to stop coming up here like this is crazy, okay? But that's just what we did. A lot of times I lost my job. One time we rented a car and didn't return it on time, and I got in big trouble for that. Another time we took a car for a test drive, and we didn't come back for 3 days. They were going to call the police on us. They didn't, because I kept calling them with all these crazy lies. This is crazy. Anyway, during this time, John had lots of different women too. One woman left her keys in my car, or she didn't like leave it. You know, he was driving her around and must have fell out of something, and her keys ended up in my car. And I got this guy I know to rob her house, and we went and pawned all the stuff off, and that poor girl came home to an empty house. Like, I really wish I knew her last name, because, and John doesn't even know it, and that's awful. But yeah, I would tell her I'm really, really sorry. This poor girl came home to nothing. Like, I totally robbed her house. There's nothing in there. Another girl got to see him break my nose in front of her house. He was supposed to come home, of course. He had my car, and I was in college at the time, which is a crazy story too. But see, I'm skipping all this stuff, but whatever. Sorry, it's too difficult to remember everything at one time. But he didn't come home with my car, and I was supposed to be at school. So I went and got my mom's car and went to the place where I knew that he was, and told him to come outside, and he came out with her, and I was like, oh, straight up, you know, like, this is how we're getting down. You just come out with her like everything's all good. And of course I was talking smack, because back then I was a fighter, man. I was not how I am today. I'm pretty calm and pretty chill these days. I don't really fight with people unless you really do something to my kids. That's the only time I can remember fighting, like, as a Christian. And that's another story. But anyways, so yeah, he punched me straight in the nose and broke my nose wide open, and there was blood everywhere. It was just awful. But anyways, the one girl that I had the most problems with was a specific girl, which I'm not going to say her name. But one day I found out, you know, that they were together. And, you know, I called the number in his phone and said, who is this? And she said, this is his girlfriend. And I was like, oh, for real? And she's like, yep. And he picks me up every day from work in this blue Cadillac. And I was like, oh, that's funny, because it's my car. So anyway, she was down to set him up, because that's what I wanted to do. I wanted him to know that I knew. And so we set him up. And the next day I came to her job while he was picking her up with my car. I'll never forget that day, because as upsetting as it was, I was like laughing that I had actually caught him. That day I kicked him out, which made him, you know, cling to her more. He would come over often, you know, once a week maybe, and I would still sleep with him, even though he was sleeping with her, which is gross. We continued to fight. Of course, I can remember another Valentine's Day where we were supposed to go out to eat, and he stopped somewhere and ran in, and I popped the trunk to get something and found 2 Valentine's Day cards. You know, one for her and one for me. Sorry.